Hello, everyone. It is August 29th, 2018. I have to tell you, it feels like yesterday that my birthday, of course, my birthday is August 1st, so it's like a month ago now. Seems like yesterday. I don't know where this month went. Of course, we know where the month went. It went that way. And I spent most of it up in Pennsylvania, and the time did fly while I was up there, almost 6 weeks up there. Just, I think, one day, or maybe actually one day short of 6 weeks. I was up there seeing my parents, but I've been back for a week now. Hello, Lois and Pamela and Shuri and Ann and Tracy and Barbara and Lois again and Carrie. Thanks for all getting in right on time. Hello, Penny. Thank you all for getting in here right at 9 p.m. Eastern, like 1 after 9. Appreciate you taking some time out of your evening or night to watch and take part. I want hello, Janet, and Ann, okay, and Angela. I just need to say that I really only have 2 questions sent to me before the show tonight. So if anybody has any questions that they would like me to answer, anything in particular, as long as it's PG and it's not too personal, I would love to. Anything that's burning up your mind tonight, I'll be glad to answer it for you if you think I can, because I really at this point only really have 2 questions from the audience going in. So you have a chance to think about it. You have about an hour, I guess, as we usually do this. This is how long it usually goes. So if you have anything that you'd like me to talk about or answer a question for you, I can do that. Pamela says she's here and awake. Glad to know it, Pamela. Hello, Susie and Cheryl and Dee Dee. Hello, everyone, and Lisa. Thanks for everybody for tuning in tonight. As you can see, if you missed last week, I'm back in Florida. I've been back here a week. It has been raining like crazy. Every day, these huge thunderstorms have been blowing in. It's really weird because they've been coming from kind of the southeast. Usually, weather here, of course, most places, I think, in the United States goes west to east. But within the last week, we've been getting a lot of rain coming from the southeast. And these huge thunderstorms just pounding. I mean, today it was just crazy. It was just crazy. So haven't been able to play any disc golf. Haven't really been outside that much. Just been getting as much work as I can get done here inside. Who else is tuned in here? Christy. Hello, Joyce. Just talking to you, Joyce. Kara. And you, not going to say your name. Almost said it. Almost forgot. Not going to say your name. You know who you are. And Shelly and Heather. Thanks for everybody for tuning in tonight. I was just talking about some Florida weather. It's rains a lot more here than it did while I was in Pennsylvania. In fact, I think it only rained a few days while I was there for 6 weeks. And I've been back here a week, and I think it's rained every day. Something that I didn't get to talk about last week, but I think I mentioned it in the news section of last Friday's episode, and that is I've had these ongoing conversations with the FBI about this case that I'm trying to cover, and I have to tell you, I'm so impressed. I'm working with let's just say someone in their legal department. I'm not actually talking to a detective or FBI agent who's out in the field or anything, but I'm talking to somebody in their legal department because I'm trying to get some hands on some information. And so far, I haven't filled out the FOIA request quite properly. I think that I wouldn't say necessarily I'm entitled to the information, but the kind of information that it is, I think should be in the public's hands, and I'm trying to make that happen. And once again, the legal department that I've talked to so far, I think that this woman there is really trying to help me out. And so I just cannot say enough nice things about my interactions with him. In fact, last Thursday, she actually called me. I had left a message for maybe Monday of last week, so a week and a half ago. And then she finally got back to me and spent some good time with me just talking some things out. So Just so impressed with them. So there you go. And hello, Ben and Sarah and Laura and Andrea. Good to see you. Wayne or Anthony. I'm sorry. Hey, Anthony, what's going on? Diane, Jillian. I haven't seen name is not familiar to me, Jillian. You may be somebody new. Thanks. I'm waving right back at you. And Maureen. So that's one of those cases, this FBI case, I just can't talk about it. It's not because I'm trying to be tricky. In fact, I got I think a 3-star rating on my page, on the Unfound page, maybe a month ago, because somebody said that, well, he has all this information and he doesn't want to give it up. Any information that I can tell listeners, I do. There's just some things, and it's not because I'm trying to hoard information or I'm trying to be tricky or act like a know-it-all or anything else. It's just that right now I'm working on it, and some of the information that I'm getting, not from the FBI but elsewhere, is coming to me through some very backdoor channels. And one person in particular, I cannot thank this person enough for being concerned about this case. And because if I were to tell you what the case is and that were to get out in the public, I think this person would be exposed, and I don't want to do that. So it's going to happen. You're going to find out about it eventually. It's just not going to be right now. But just overall, I just could not be more impressed with my dealings with the FBI so far. I hope that continues. Barbara, Emily, good to just talk to Emily a little bit ago. And Dorothy and Joni and a lot of people, Lavonda and Christina, Shy. Shy is asking me, how do you get the information? Are you a PI or just simply someone interested in the case? I'm not a private investigator. I have no license. I've never, I have to say it's crossed my mind to maybe get licensed here in Florida, Shy, but you know, the way I get information is by making connections, frankly. I get information by getting to know people, by contacting people, and it helps that now I have a good reputation. People know who I am. People know about the program. If they don't, I can easily point them in a direction and show them all of the cases that I've covered in the last 2 years. They can see what kind of work I do. Of course, they can see how many people are in the group, over 3,000 now. And when people learn that people who are in positions to know things see that, that builds trust. And some people have trusted me with some information, not just on this case, but a lot of cases. And I really appreciate that. So that's how I get it. And sometimes I don't even ask for it. They just send it to me. They see what I'm doing, and they don't want to be known, but I run this show. Of course, I use my real name, and I think they see me as maybe as a conduit to get some things out. So I don't have any special skills or anything like that. Probably the biggest thing for me is that over the last 2 years, I've made a lot of connections. I think that's what it is. Laura asks, hi, Ed, listening for a while, new to live broadcast, close by in St. Pete, right down the road from me. I'm right here in Madeira Beach. In fact, if anybody drives by on 140th Avenue right now in Madeira Beach, they're going to see me. They're going to see me sitting at my table here because the way I'm looking at it, I'm looking right out into 140th Avenue, Laura, so there you go. Hello, Michelle. Susie asks me, question, Ed, in what % of the unfound cases would you say the police detectives do an above average job? It seems that it's not very often, perhaps. I think that your perception is true, Susie. I can think of a few cases off the top of my head where the family thought the police did a good job. For example, if we go way back to 2016, Regina Marie Boss, I remember her sister was on, if you'll remember that. And if you haven't listened to that episode, you should go back. She had very good things to say about the Lincoln, Nebraska police. That's one that sticks out to mind. Being that that's one of the only ones that sticks out, I guess says something. I I would say that, above average, not as often as we would like, Susie. Not as often was, and once again, I'm not there. The families know what happened. I'm asking them questions. You can determine to yourself whether they, if they're telling the truth about the police and the job they did or not. Like I said, in many of these cases, the police are put in a very, very difficult position. But I would say that not a lot of them are what I would call above average. I think that for the most part, most of the police work, when it's all averaged out, is probably below average, I would say. Just what I think, and we're grading that according to what we think that they should be doing. Maybe sometimes our expectations are a little too high. That's possible too. Carrie says, beat the street, so to say. Yeah, I do beat the street, Carrie, I do. I do beat the street. That's true. I'm always looking to meet new people, make a connection, whether it's at NamUs or maybe a guy like Detective Kenneth Maines with ASOC, people like that. I'm always looking to know somebody there, and I want them to know me. I want them to know my phone number. I want them to know the email address, and I want them to, at least listen to a couple episodes to see what I'm all about. Yes. She continues. Shai says, how do you get their trust to trust you with said information, considering you're someone interested? I think that it just comes down to they listen. They know that I'm out here. And they know that I think they see the compliments that the program gets. I think they've seen some of the reviews of the program. I think that just talking to me, I think any of these people who don't know me get to talk to me, and they know that I'm a straight shooter and I'm a good guy. I think that all factors into it. I think it's a variety of things put together. And I think that the reason I continue to get, they may just send me a little piece of something, and then they show that I can be trusted with that I don't, mishandle it, and I don't go right to web sleuths or something like that and broadcast it. Then you get more, and you get more, and you get more, and you get told things. And it takes time. I mean, that didn't happen for a while. I mean, the first, 8 months of this program probably were pretty different than the last year and some months have been. That's just the way. I think that's the way with anything. Penny, thank you. Emily is right. Lavonda, thank you. What's up? I am going to talk about the doorbell case here in a bit. Yeah, I just want to answer a few questions. I wanted to say also on Saturday, I think I'm going to be going to the scene of a disappearance near here, a case that I haven't covered yet, but I am going to cover it for sure within the next couple months. But I think I'm going to be going to this place on Saturday, but I don't want to jinx it right now. I don't want to tell you what the case is in case something falls through. But I'm going to be going, meeting probably a future guest. We're going to go to a couple locations. We're going to talk about it. And it's within driving distance of Tampa. It's not right in Tampa. It's not in Pinellas County. It's not in Hillsborough County. It's outside of that area. But that's something else that I have planned for this weekend, probably on Saturday. Just want to get some business out of the way before we go any further. Of course, the books. I got them stacked up right here. Numero uno. Numero dos. Numero tres. Numero cuatro. I've got the playing cards right here, makeplayingcards.com. I need to start on year 2, being that year 2 is now done, ending at the end of July 2018. So there we go on makeplayingcards.com. And then I need to thank some Patreon and PayPal people. I need to thank Kelly, who actually increased her support through Patreon. I need to thank the podcast, But Not Forgotten, But Not Forgotten. The podcast, I'm not familiar with it, but they made a contribution. Thank you. I need to also thank Julie with a very, very generous Patreon contribution within the last few days. And then I need to thank Angela as well. So if you're interested, PayPal and Patreon support is always appreciated. And I have to tell you that most of that money just goes back out into the books and shirts and other things that guests receive after being on the program. Lavonda asks, a little off topic, but a quick favor. My daughter, Ariel, is having a birthday today, 9 years old. Can you please say happy birthday? She likes to watch your show with me. Her name is Ariel. Ariel, I hope you're looking at the camera right now, your computer. Happy birthday to you. You are a very special person. You know why? Because you were born in August like I was. Even though I know that the end of August, I think that would be what, Virgo? I'm not necessarily into astrology, but I think that would make you a Virgo at the end of August. But you're born in the coolest month of the year. And don't let anybody ever tell you differently. August is the coolest month. Remember that. Happy birthday, Ariel. Joni asked me, what is my educational background? Even if it isn't in criminal investigation, you do have a talent for interviews, making unbiased intellectual conclusions. Well, if anybody were to see my diploma from college, it's in business. I would say that I passed the classes, but I would not say that I was a very good student where I went to college for a lot of different reasons that I think don't have anything to do with my brain. But, you know, as far as the rest of that, the criminal investigation, if you think I have a talent for interviews, I deeply appreciate that. Thank you. I think for me, it's just, I just like to know stuff. You know, I just like to know things. And I have a, you know, kind of a thirst for knowing things. And that's, you know, I'm a single guy. I have a lot, when I'm not doing Unfound, I have a lot of time to myself. When I'm just relaxing, what do? I go to like Wikipedia and just read about stuff. Just about, you know, wherever it may take me. I just like to consume information. And that's the kind of mindset I try to get into when I do the interviews. Because, you know, you should know that, you know, I think if you meet me in person, I really don't talk a lot. I talk a lot on this program, on the live show, but I like to listen to people. I do. I'm more than happy to sit there and listen if somebody's talking to me about things that I don't know and everything. So I think you just have, I think it's just using that part of my brain that is curious, I think. But thank you for that. No, November is not pretty cool, Sherry. It has Thanksgiving. That's probably about it. I made her day. Great. I'm happy to hear that. And you should know my mother's born in October, and my father's born in December. So those are kind of cool months too. So there you go. And my brother, well, my sister Diane is born in November. Come to think of it. Okay, well, maybe it is cool. Hello, Jamie. So, there you go. Shirts, of course, we can't forget about the shirts at myshopify.com as well. I meant to bring one out. I'm actually wearing a Mary Lau shirt tonight for Center for Hope, of course, her nonprofit organization. If you can spare a couple dollars, please go to her website. I think it's centerforhope.org. Of course, you could Google it, and I'm sure she would appreciate a donation. But that's the shirt that I am wearing tonight. Everybody who has been listening to Unfound for a while knows that Mary Lyle has been a supporter of the program since the beginning. She and I are very close. She has been a big supporter of the program. And so if you have a couple bucks, $10, $20, whatever, please help her out at Center for Hope, the great work she does out of New York. So there you go. What else do we have going on in here? I've been on the phone a lot. I cannot even tell you how much I've been on the phone, like especially Monday and Tuesday. Was on the phone a lot with interviews for some upcoming shows, including this Friday's. And then I've been tracking down some people for the Tribune Review. By the way, I hope you went to triblive.com and checked out the article they did on Donnie Smatlack's case. I'm really hoping some local attention for that case will turn up some new information, because as you learned on the update show that I did back in July, that just doing Unfound, which of course is not local to Pennsylvania or Pittsburgh, it's an international program, even a couple more things came out of that where a couple people contacted me who knew Donnie way back in the day. I'm hoping that that article will cause that to happen in the Pittsburgh area. I really, really am hoping, for that. So I thought they did a good job with it. And I've been very fortunate in the last week to be able to contact some more families in the Pittsburgh area that will be doing those missing persons cases in the upcoming months. So things are going very well there. Emily says I was, see, everybody's going to now say that their month is the coolest. I knew I shouldn't have said that. I opened up a can of worms on that one for sure. Paula says, I recently found your podcast because of Thomas Brown. Okay, as a lot of people have. I'm from Lubbock, so I found the 2 episodes about the young women from Lubbock very interesting. Thank you. You're talking, of course, is Jennifer Wilkerson and Zoe Campos. And I'm very happy that I could just say those off the top of my head. Paula, you're welcome. You're welcome. I continue. I haven't talked to Zoe's mother recently, but I have had an ongoing conversation with Jennifer's mother, Vicky, since she was on the program, over a year ago now. And there are some things going on in Jennifer's case. I can't talk about them right at the second, but there are things going on in Jennifer's case, some things that have come to light, I'm going to say within the last 6 months. So as soon as I'm allowed to talk about it, I'll talk about it. But yes, those are 2 cases that, unfortunate. I mean, they're all unfortunate, but I think, in those 2 cases, I actually think I have hopes that they'll both be solved. I mean, the lead in the Jennifer Wilkerson case is pretty glaring. It's a pretty big one, pretty big. With Zoe's case, I think that one's that's eventually going to be solved too. I can't say when, but I think it has a good chance of being solved. And I would tell, and I think that Zoe's mother knows that I believe that. Brandy and Kate, how are you tonight? Thanks for tuning in. Thank you for I'm not going to continue to read these compliments because I don't want to seem like I'm patting myself on the back. Dorothy, thank you for those nice words. Thank you. And Dorothy, I guess I do have to answer your question. Wasn't it you? Let me see here real quick. Hold on one second. I want to get this right. No, it was Pamela that asked me about this. It was Pamela. I need to answer this question right now, and then we'll get into some of this news. After re-listening to the Stephen Kocher episode, I'm wondering if your experience with this case helped motivate you to start Unfound. Did it not you how the private investigator handled things? I'll just leave it at that. I will tell you this. My attitude, general attitude, has always been that I love puzzles. I love them. Like word jumbles and things like that. I'm not so much into the number puzzle, Sudoku or whatever it's called. I'm not so much into that, but like word puzzles and crossword puzzles, I'll do them when I'm up with my parents. But I think that with Stephen's case, I had an opportunity to work on a puzzle that is real, that means something. Okay? And we all know about those kind of video games. I can remember Myst way back in the day. It's kind of like a mystery. You have to solve it. And the Law and Order episodes where you had to solve the mystery and everything. Well, this was kind of my first opportunity to work on a mystery in real life. And actually go places, talk to some people, walk the street where Stephen did and everything. And what I quickly found is that surpasses anything that you can do that is not real, like video games. You know, anything, and I'm not a video gamer anyway, but it was just an opportunity. You know, for example, the way I feel when I work on these cases is, of course, they are important. I think that these cases are not just important to families, but I believe these cases are important to civilization. And something that I've never talked about is we always think of something like, well, imagine if there was an epidemic. Like, for example, when Europe had the Black Plague, millions and millions of people died. Horrible, horrible. Horrible. But as we know, Europe continued on. You know, Europe still exists. Yes, there's a couple world wars there and everything, but somehow Europe, all the people there managed to stay together, continue to procreate, and here we are in the 21st century. Europe still exists. Those countries still exist. It wasn't like because of the Black Plague, the entire continent fell into some kind of anarchy. Well, imagine this. Imagine if the same percentage of people who died from the plague back then, imagine if that same number had disappeared. Just imagine that. That would be something that I think would cause a nation, a collection of nations, a continent to probably, descend into anarchy. I think it would. If people were disappearing all over the place, whether, from suicides or murders or whatever else. So when I think about that, it just shows me how, although disease is bad and it kills cancer, the rest of it is bad, horrible. If you were to have the same amount of people going missing that die of cancer or the plague or anything else, this world would just be one big, huge mess. You wouldn't be able to govern. You wouldn't have law and order. There would be very disparate people out there. I think that it would descend into anarchy. And that's why I think that these cases are so important to me, because if you let this spread, I think it undermines law and order. It undermines peaceful civilizations. It undermines countries getting along together, on and on and on. I really believe that. I've had a lot of time to think about that. And hello, Angie. Hello, Sarah. Oh, Sarah, how are you? I talked to Sarah yesterday. When doing this, I think it kind of fulfills a few different things put together. I think that this is important because solving these cases and learning about missing persons cases makes our civilization, and I don't just mean the United States, but the world, it makes the world better, no doubt. And we avoid this world descending in some sort of chaos if we can't get a handle on why people disappear and keep them from disappearing. On top of that, personally, it gives me an opportunity to do something that goes well with me, and it does something that's real. It's not fake. It's not, once again, it's not video games. It's not, it's not a crossword puzzle. It's not a word jumble. These are real life mysteries. And in a way, it does kind of make you feel like Columbo or something. Or if, you're into, for example, Mission Impossible, it can kind of make you feel like that. You're going on these adventures. And what's better than being able to do good things for civilization, do good things for families, and at the same time, build up your own self-esteem and confidence in yourself, and really feel like, you know what, I'm only going to be here for a certain amount of time. I'm doing something that matters. So that's probably when it started. So I think that in answering that question, Pamela, that yes, that's probably when it started. When I started getting into that, and was like, man, this feels really good. And not because I was doing something that nobody else was doing, but because, because I felt tricky or something like that. And I realized a lot of people don't have time. You wouldn't have had time to do what I was doing back in 2009 into 2010 regarding Stephen's case. I just, a single guy, you got time in your hands. But it just feels like, it feels interesting. It feels good. And so you may be right. It just maybe took a while for those other things, the technology maybe, and the culture and everything to try to finally come together where I could do this in the way that it's been done for the last 2 years. I think. So I don't think it had anything to do with a private investigator seeing a little inept, because you know what? When I manage people, I'm probably a little inept too. But if he's going to choose to be in that, he surely needed to be better than he was back then in 2010. My opinion. So there you go. I do think that the search, you ask if the search was merely a pretense, I wouldn't go that far. I just never felt to me like we were going to find anything. It was a little hard for me that we were just going to find Stephen, any signs of Stephen right off St. Rose Parkway. I mean, I guess I was ready for it, but there was just a kind of feeling. I hate to go by that, but I just didn't have an idea that we were going to – it seemed a little – it might have been a little contrived. Maybe it was just a private investigator trying to look like it was doing something. Very possible, which happens in a lot of cases, but I don't want to talk about it. Has any video ever been compared to the video they believed to him when the day went missing? I have no idea. Did you ever check to see he was released from jail that day? I did. And I can't remember. Unfortunately, I can't remember what I found. It mustn't have been anything that was connected to Stephen's case, or I think I would remember it. But it was interesting. Everything I said in the episode last Friday is true. So there you go. Let's go to this news story, which is probably, of course, it's kind of been resolved now. But we have this woman who, and I'm not sure, I just put this outline together about 7:30 tonight. I didn't see if there was any names mentioned, but in Montgomery, Texas, in this Sunrise Ranch subdivision, first of all, last Friday, there was a woman who was walking through the neighborhood ringing on doorbells. And it happened to be that one of the houses just happened to have one of these doorbells, or they had some motion detector or something that a camera came on when it was set off. And it videotaped this woman who looked like she had handcuffs on, coming and pushing the doorbell and then going on to the next house. And it wasn't until the next day that the neighbors said, you know what, we all had our doorbells rung the night before. And so she looked at this video, and of course people got very worried, what's going on? And of course it was believed that might be a prank. And I'll admit, because I'm never going to evade these types of things, I kind of thought maybe it was a prank as well. I'll admit that. We now know that that's not true. But they were trying to figure out who this woman was, and was she actually, were these handcuffs on her wrists? And I've watched the video and I really couldn't tell. Well, now just today, also within the last couple days, the sister of Caitlin Dennison, and this is a 19-year-old who disappeared from Reno, Nevada. She disappeared at the beginning of this year. She said that she was going to be meeting some guy in Midland, Texas. She was going to get on a plane and fly to Midland, Texas to meet a guy. Well, her sister came out within the last couple days and said, I believe that that's my sister. For various reasons, tattoos, reasons. I have to tell you, and I think that somebody who's watching it, Shuri, will support what I'm going to say, but being that she and I talked about this privately, I told her that's not Caitlin Dennison. And it's now been proven that that's correct, that it's not Caitlin Dennison. To me, just in looking at the video, the woman in the video looked way too old to be Caitlin Dennison. Just the kind of the way she moved, her hair, kind of when she turned to the side, I knew that it was not Caitlin Dennison. It just, to me, Didn't look like her at all. And this is one of those situations where, you know, and this is not to be critical or blunt, but sometimes people see what they want to see. And that is what that's what such the tough thing. As Carrie is saying, no name of the female due to her being a domestic violence victim. Right. And I totally respect that. You know, people see what they want to see. And that's the reason that eyewitness accounts are so suspect, and they're so unreliable. People see what they want to see. They want to help, or they want to, or if they're really arrogant or egotistical, they want to infuse themselves into the conversation, or they want to be seen as a person who knows things. I cannot even begin to tell you. I've tried to, you know, a few weeks ago in a discussion with somebody in the group, maybe a month ago now, how eyewitness accounts are so unreliable. And it takes a very objective eye to be able to say, no, that's not your missing daughter. That is not your missing son. And frankly, I've had to do that with some guests off the air, because I believe these people deserve, it's not necessarily the truth. I mean, who knows what the actual truth is, but they need to know if people suspect that something that they think is true might not be. People just need to be honest, even if it's just an opinion. I think that these families need honest opinions, but if you're going to offer them an opinion, you need to give them a reason why. Not just, well, I'm just entitled to my opinion and, you know, we have freedom of speech and everything. If you're going to talk to these people, please have a rational, logical reason to state the reason, you know, the way you think. You could be wrong, but at least give them what's going on up in your head and how you come to that conclusion. Okay, that's what these people deserve. And as I like to say, they like thoughts and prayers and everything. It's perfectly fine, and I believe in the power of that as well. But I think more than anything, they want people to be honest with them, and they want people to be truthful, and they want to be able to talk logically and rationally with people. Okay? And so that's what I try to do. That's why I mean, any guest who's been on the program will know that in our first conversations, I get very technical with them about even the tiniest of things, because that starts to build in my head what I think happened. And I try to tell them what happened, what I think happened, just going by what they've told me and the answers that they gave. Now, so getting back to this case in Montgomery, Texas, had Caitlin Dennison's sister been talking to me at the same time she was thinking that that was her sister, I would tell her the reasons that I don't think it was her. But it just shows you kind of, that information got out there so quickly that, of course, it wasn't. And see, although it may raise awareness of Caitlin Dennison's disappearance, it certainly does in the short term. In the long term, though, I'm wondering if this doesn't hurt the case a little bit, because then people start thinking, well, obviously her sister and her family don't know what they're talking about. I wonder about that. I don't have a definitive answer on that, and I know that any of them are happy to get any attention that they can media-wise. But I also know in these cases, you can cry wolf too many times. That this sighting over here, that's definitely my sister. Well, this sighting over here, that's definitely my sister. Well, if all those sightings, never pan out, at some point the public stops listening. That's just human. It's not because the public is mean or they're self-centered or anything else. It's just human nature that people at some point get a little worn out. So you just have to pick your spots sometimes when it comes to eyewitness accounts and things. And as Shuri says, or they think that she's been found. Right. What happens if it turns out that somebody says, oh, yeah, that's my sister? People will start thinking, oh, she's been found, and they'll move on their merry way, not realizing that really that wasn't Caitlin Dennison at that door in Montgomery, Texas, and she's still missing. Well, some of the public is going to actually think she was found. That doesn't help the family at all when people start thinking, because then people stop thinking about it. So you really, really have to pick your spots. And I didn't know Caitlin Dennison. But I looked at that video. I watched the video maybe 10 times. I don't see those tattoos that she's talking about that was in that article. Once again, I don't know. I don't want to be too critical here, but it just seemed pretty obvious to me that it wasn't her, even though I never met Caitlin Dennison in person. But it turns out that what was going on there, somebody already typed it, that this was some sort of domestic violence situation, and it turns out that then just today, the boyfriend of this woman was found in their house, which I think was on the other side of the subdivision. He was found shot to death in their home, and it looks, I don't know if she shot him or he committed suicide. I've heard that it was only one shot. That would lead me to believe it was a suicide. Usually when somebody shoots somebody, they usually pull the trigger more than once. So I just don't know what to think right now. But this, as somebody's already said, this was some sort of domestic violence situation. Maybe that night she was trying to get away from him. And then in the meantime, he felt bad, or he thought he was going to go to jail or something. Maybe he shot himself. I don't know how it's all pans out. I don't know what the actual, we're going to find out. And I don't know if we'll ever find out exactly what happened. Maybe she shot him, got away. Maybe she took off. He shot himself. And then it wasn't until just today they find out that the guy's actually dead. So I don't know. But here's what we do know is that it was not any missing persons case in Texas that was outstanding, for months, or like Caitlin Dennison for almost a year. It was nothing like that. It seems to me that this, or it wasn't some sort of sex trafficking. Somebody thought, well, maybe this was a woman who was tied up and she was being sex trafficked and she broke away. Perfectly reasonable to think that. Wasn't that either. It was not a situation like in Cleveland where those women were found, or J.C. Dugard, something like that. It was not like that either. Good possibility. It kind of looked like that, but it wasn't. And I have to say, in looking at the video, it doesn't look like she has handcuffs on her wrists. It looks like she just has bracelets or something that hang down, and then she has something like a bandage or something on her arm. So Beth says the news reported she wasn't in the home at the time. Okay. Law enforcement, Carrie saying law enforcement is saying self-inflicted gunshot wound. I read that. It's Sherry says Montgomery County, Texas, not Montgomery, Texas. Thank you, Sherry. It's Montgomery County, Texas. And Shai says there's supposedly a note, a suicide note. So there you go. Thank you for filling me in on all of that. I do have to say something about Caitlin, being that when I did read that yesterday about it possibly being Caitlin Dennison, I did look up her case. It's not on Charlie Project yet, but I did look it up, and if you want my opinion on that case, once again, I don't know anything more than any of you do. I've not talked to anybody in her family, although I remember her disappearance popping up in the news earlier this year. I really don't believe she ever left Nevada. That's my opinion. I know nothing more than any of you do, but she said she was going to get on a plane to meet a guy in Midland, Texas. She said that she was really scared of him, but she was flying there anyway. There's just something about that story. Maybe that's a case we'll end up covering on Unfound. I'd certainly like an opportunity, but we'll see if that can happen. But right now, it feels to me like she never left Nevada. I may talk to the family, and they may have videos and everything else, but and reading what I could about the case very quickly, I don't think that she ever went to Texas. I think that was some sort of misdirection on her part or something. Just a suspicion. So we had that. I really, I knew that once that case came up last Friday from Montgomery County, Texas, I knew we'd be talking about it tonight. Never did I think that by the time we're talking about it tonight, it would be resolved. We thought that was going to be some sort of missing persons case, but I thought we better talk about it anyway. So there you go. The next thing is, did you see this story about, and of course, we're going to get to this week's case before we're done tonight. This story is, this guy's name was Brian Egg, like what comes out of a chicken, an egg, EGG. A story out of San Francisco, California. His body was found in his fish tank at home, but it was headless and handless. So no head, and no hands. The first thing I was thinking, man, that must be one big fish tank to fit a grown man in it, especially a fish tank that you would have at home. But he had been missing for a few days. Some people got worried about him. They made somebody who knew him had the cops go make a welfare check. And when they went over the couple times, there were two men there who were saying that Brian at his place, who said, yeah, he went on vacation. And it wasn't until a private crime scene cleanup business came over, and the neighbors saw this, and the business went in there and cleaned something up, that they called the cops again, and then the cops took it a little more seriously, and that's when they went in there and found Brian in his own aquarium. I cannot imagine that. That sounds like something out of a movie. It really does. And I think at least one of the guys who was answering the door at his place are now in custody, but I think he's in custody for other reasons. But, you know, what I think that we should take out of this, and, you know, being that I think it's also appropriate, being that somebody asked me this earlier in the program about the cops and whether they do an above-average job in a lot of these cases. The cops went to this residence 3 times before that they figured out something was wrong. They actually took these 2 guys' word that Brian went on vacation. You know, it took 3 times to figure out a guy was in his own aquarium at home. And so these are the things I think that drive the public a little nuts. I wasn't there. I've never been a cop. I can't necessarily put myself in their shoes or anything, but you know, somebody makes a welfare check and 2 guys answer the door that don't actually live there. I think that'd be easy to figure out if you ask them for ID. And they say that, you know, he's on vacation. I think as a policeman, you have to have a little better instincts than that. I think that you have to have a few more alarm bells that go off in your head instead of just taking people at their word. And I think that that's what has happened in some of the missing persons cases we've covered, where cops have taken certain people's words and the case wasn't investigated quickly enough. You know, it's like, did the cops not see the yellow and red flags there? I guess not. I guess not in San Francisco. But I think that this case, other than it just being a really odd case, I think that's what we could take away from this, that police just need to be a little more, once again, have a little more intuitiveness, a little more of a gut feeling regarding these things than maybe they do. And I do have to say that this case does remind me of one of the most famous headlines of all time. I think it was in the New York Post going back to the 1980s. Headless man found in topless bar, which was a true crime or something that happened in the 80s, and you can look that up. That's a true story. It happened at some strip club. A guy was found in there without his head. So headless man found in topless bar. And so it kind of reminded me of that in reading this story. Carrie says, you would think a crime scene crew would be required to report to Ellie before they do a job. I think it was a private company, so this is probably, you know, this is probably one of those companies, for example, if somebody, you know, dies at home, has a heart attack and there's blood and everything else that happens when a person has a heart attack, they throw up and everything else. This would probably be that kind of crew that comes in and cleans something like that up. And I'm just wondering if those two guys kind of, I don't know, put a blanket over the aquarium or something like that while they were there. I don't know. I don't know if those details will ever get out, Carrie. No, Carrie says no PC to search once they were told vacation. Probable cause to search once. I don't know, Carrie. I would think that cops might show up at some guy's house and they say the guy's on vacation. I think that would be like, oh, really? Where'd he go? When did he leave? Let me see your IDs. Why are you guys here? Well, you told us to watch him. Well, really? Okay. Well, can you go talk to the neighbors? And it just seems that if you just take some time, you could figure out that this wasn't actually the case. Beth, thank you for agreeing with me. I love it when people agree with me. Well, Carrie, people do house sit. I'm not going to deny that, but not to the point where, I house sit for my brother once in a while. As you know, I've done this program from over at his house a variety of times. No police have ever showed up wondering where my brother and his wife are. They tell the neighbors, hey, we're going on vacation. Ed's going to be over there, etc. So, and my brother and his wife have, gone away for I've been at their house for 10 days in a row. No cops ever showed up at the front door. So, Beth, yeah, Chris Turner's an excellent example where the cops should have had a little bit better insight than they did. Jackie, thanks for tuning in. Susie asked me, did you read the book Devil in the White City? I've never even heard of it, Susie, just to be honest with you. I never even heard of it. Okay, Shelly, good night. You're excused. Carrie says, I tried to get someone to do cleanup for your own father's passing. Had to show police department reports. Well, then you know more about this than I do, Carrie. I don't know. I don't, once again, I'm taking for granted that the crew showed up and did clean the apartment. Maybe they showed up and that was what tipped the neighbors off again. Maybe the cops got there before they started. I don't know. The articles that I've read were not that technical. Sherry says, it seems like they do more investigating when you get pulled over for speeding. Doesn't it seem like it? That is a true statement. So there you go. And then finally, I guess I need to, and then Joyce and somebody had asked me if I was going to talk about this. Of course, the murder of Shannon Watts and her 2 daughters and her unborn child from Colorado, from a couple weeks ago. It's now come out on a show called Crime and Justice, hosted by Ashley Banfield. I remember when she used to be a host on MSNBC, I'm going to say, right? She does a crime and justice program now. A man has come forward to say that he was having a gay affair, a homosexual affair, with Christopher Watts. Now, if you remember, there was a story out when it happened that Christopher Watts, the husband that's been charged in this case, was having an affair with someone that he worked with. Well, now they are thinking that it was not that it matters. And we're not judging anybody's sexuality or anything like that, but we're not doing that. But it turns out that it was actually a guy that he might have had a relationship with. And in fact, Christopher Watts was on the app Tinder. And I guess there is a special Tinder app. I'm a little clueless about a few of these things for gay people. And he was on there, allegedly. And I guess that Ashley Banfield found this guy believable enough that she had him on, she interviewed him, but I don't think they showed his picture or used his name, but they talked to him. I don't know if Christopher Watts' sexuality in this matters at all. In fact, I know it doesn't. It doesn't. I think that he's just a bad guy, whether you're straight or gay or bisexual or in the closet. It just doesn't matter to me. I think in the end, I think Christopher Watts did this. Joyce, I have to say that Janet asked me before the show started, is it possible that Christopher Watts' story is true, that he came home to find Shannon killed the daughters and then he killed his wife because well, no, I don't think that's believable at all. And because he went and hit all their bodies, that's how I know that that's not the case. I think that he's Christopher Watts, for whatever reason, decided that was the day to kill his wife and kill his kids. Maybe it was because he was going to leave his wife for this guy and didn't want to have to pay child support and everything. Maybe. But that wouldn't be any difference if he was leaving to be with a man or a woman. That would still be the same thing. So I don't think Christopher Watts' sexuality has anything to do with this at all. I think it has everything to do, and really, it kind of feels a little tabloidish that, let's just put it this way. The only reason that Crime and Justice program covered it is because the guy that they were talking to is gay and saying that Christopher Watts is gay. I think if it was a woman who had come forward and said, yeah, I was having an affair with Christopher Watts, I don't know if she gets on that TV show. So it feels a little tabloidish to me, and I think it sends the wrong message about sexuality and, kind of a little bit of the same complaint that happened when, for example, Basic Instinct came out, and how the gay community was angry that Sharon Stone's character was bisexual, and then their girlfriend's a lesbian, and they thought it portrayed the gay community in a bad light. I think some people also said that about the Silence of the Lambs movie. This kind of feels like that. I just don't think that Christopher Watts' sexuality has anything to do with it. I think it's interesting to talk about that he was having an affair, but I don't really care if it was with a man or a woman or any other kind of gender. He's just a bad guy. He's one of the worst. He killed his wife and his daughters and tried to get away with it. So that's for me, my interest, what I do, that's where it ends for me. And I have the sinking suspicion that the only reason that they even covered that was because of the gay angle, which I don't like. I think that's wrong. So there you go. So that was that story. I don't know if you'd heard about that or not, but I don't believe his story. I don't believe Christopher Watts' story that his wife killed the daughters and then he killed the wife, and then because he was the one who tried to hide all of their bodies for no reason. And, if that's the case, he did it for no reason. Well, the reason he would hide them is because he killed them and wanted to get away with it. So there you go. Hello, Penny. Good to see you. Good to see you tonight, Penny. Good to see you. In fact, I have to send you a message after I'm done here. Lana says he sort of sounds credible just because he mentions the girls in the car. Whatever, doesn't matter. He murdered his family most likely because he's crazy, most likely abusive. Yes, right. I think that is why she made all those videos and posts. I've read a little bit about that since this crime happened, Lana. And there was the writing out there. It could be that she was saying all of these nice things about her husband so he wouldn't do anything to her. She's portraying him as being a great guy and everything, that he would go easy on her and the daughters. That's very possible. Very possible. And once more, it shows you just can't believe, you just can't believe everything you see on social media and how people, the way they portray their lives. And we really never know what's going on behind closed doors. Beth says, for the record, I've not seen Ashley Banfield's show and didn't know where you were going with the story. I feel bad. I said I liked her now. I didn't see the show. I'm not going to get crazy criticizing her or anything. It's just, I just get the feeling, once again, having been doing this for 2 years, that I just get the feeling, once again, have never watched the show, and as most of you know, I don't even watch TV, that I wonder, would they have covered that if and we don't even know if this gay guy's telling the truth. It may all be BS. It may be total BS, and that's a whole other angle to this. But I just get the feeling that they wouldn't be covering it like they did if it was a woman. You know, I think they covered it because, oh, married guy is actually gay, and then he was having this affair with another guy, and you know, whereas if the other person was a woman, I don't see. It's just the feeling I get. This, you know, this is the business I am, and you know, and I think you want to know these things. Sherry says she was really only reporting like most of America. Well, okay, Sherry. Let's talk about this. Do I have another question to answer? Somebody else asked me another question before we get into this week's case. No, that's it. Okay, let's talk about this week's case. This is the disappearance of Bonnie Joseph. She is a member of the First Nation in Canada, which means she is a Native woman of Canada, just like there are Native Americans. They're also called the Aboriginals of Canada. And she is part of that community up there. They live on reservations, just like they do here in the United States. And she is the person that we will be talking about on Friday. The guest is her cousin, Vanessa, who since Bonnie disappeared has really gotten involved. Vanessa's really gotten involved in raising awareness for all of these Native American or Native Canadian First Nation women who have gone missing and their unsolved murders across Canada. She gave me a number that there are 1,200 First Nation women who are either missing or they're part of unsolved murders in Canada. In Canada, it's like 1/10 the population of the United States. So imagine 120,000 Native American women. You remember, I mean, that's how crazy the numbers are when you really start thinking about it. And so we are calling, and the other big thing about this case is that she disappeared on the Highway 16 that runs east and west in Western Canada from British Columbia going east. Highway 16 that has now become known as the Highway of Tears. And in fact, it even has its own Wikipedia page detailing all of the women who have gone missing or been murdered on that highway since the 1970s. Bonnie Joseph is one of those women. The problem is she's not listed on the Wikipedia page for the Highway of Tears as being a victim, even though she was hitchhiking on that highway when she disappeared. There was a New York Times article that was just written on the Highway of Tears within the last couple years. She's not mentioned there either. So the goal this week is not just to tell you about Bonnie and what she was going through in her life, but to raise awareness that she should be included in this list. And in fact, as I've kind of discovered at least a little bit, there are other First Nation women who look like they are also victims of this Highway of Tears for what, you know, whether they were murdered or they went missing or whatever, who also aren't on the major lists regarding the Highway of Tears. Once again, this series of crimes that have been committed on this highway since the 1970s, and I think that's distressing. All right, these women have been left out for some reason. All right, I'm going to be pointing that out in my submit. We don't get too much into that in my interview with Vanessa, but I am going to talk about it at least a little bit in my summation. I'm going to give you some names and things in the summation. She was hitchhiking. She was trying to get her children back. They were in foster care in Canada, and she had to hitchhike from where she lived to, about 3 hours away to get to these court-mandated meetings. And she had not missed any. She'd go at least once a month. And she was hitchhiking to get to one of those court meetings the next day. Never made it to that meeting, has never been seen again. And we do talk about at least one guy who seemed to be preying on women at the time, although he's not been connected to Bonnie Joseph's case. We don't know. But we're going to mention some other names of women who have gone missing or were found murdered around that time, kind of before Bonnie went missing, and try to, I'm going to mention them to you so you can look it up for yourselves. Lana says, it is something going on in Canada with missing First Nation people and unsolved murders. I think it is a serial killer in Thunder Bay. Very well could be. Lana also says, Canada really needs to get a better database. It needs to be open to the public. You're right. And Beth says, I remember that story. So sad. Well, this is the case this week. And like I said, Vanessa, and it's just going to be called Highway of Tears. And we're going to talk a little bit about, once again, the interview with Vanessa, but in my summation, we're going to talk about just kind of what I've read. I'm not probably ever going to be an expert on it, but just looking at the list and going to the Native women's site that's set up for all these women who have been murdered and gone missing. I'm going to link to that before Friday so you can all look at it. And, you know, we think of Canada as being a fairly safe country, and I believe it is. We did Sean Gignard's disappearance a couple months ago. He disappeared in one of the most violent cities in Canada called Thompson, Manitoba. Well, Thompson, if it was in the United States, I don't even know if it would move the needle, but it does in Canada. But it does seem to me that Canada does have a problem with the reporting and the coverage, media coverage, of these First Nation women who go missing. Because you will be hard to find anything regarding Bonnie's disappearance. Even though white women, just to be frank, white women who have gone missing on the Highway of Tears, you can find their names anywhere. In fact, they are listed in the on the Wikipedia site. But Bonnie's name, not there. So we're going to talk about it. And that is the case. She disappeared September 8th, 2007. She was last seen in Vanderhoof by one of her cousins. The cousin saw her walking on the highway out of Vanderhoof, east, headed toward Prince George. But it's not walking distance. She would have had to have gotten a ride. And she never ended up where she was going, and she never was seen again. The other problem was that a missing persons report wasn't even filled out for 3 months. That's the other issue regarding it, because Bonnie was a little transient. That also has factored into her disappearance still being unsolved, and it's coming up on the 11th anniversary. So that is going to be the case this Friday. Frankly, I'm going to tell you right now, there are not a lot of facts in this case. So it's not one of the longer interviews that I've ever done, but really the reason I wanted to do it was to raise awareness about these women and how they're not getting the media attention that they should, and how they should be included in this Highway of Tears phenomenon that has gone on. Okay? That's why I wanted to do it, despite there not being a ton of facts out there. So, and this all happened in British Columbia, Canada, so over on the western side of Canada near the Pacific Ocean. The other, I guess, point I must make is this is not the only woman in Vanessa's family to go missing. She had another cousin go missing. Her name is Immaculate Basil. Yes, that's her real first name, and she goes by the nickname Mackie. I also interviewed Vanessa for that disappearance. Now, in that disappearance, there's a lot more information, and I do not believe it has anything to do with the Highway of Tears. But so Vanessa's had two cousins go missing, and we did both interviews at the same time. You will hear about Bonnie Joseph this week, and then you're going to hear about Mackie Basil's disappearance in 2013, a couple weeks from now. So we have another situation. I know Joyce is watching tonight. We now have another situation where we have two family members go missing, just like Joyce Ruvatuzo lost two of her daughters to a disappearance in 1979. Diane said, get a little off topic, it is my opinion in the case of Tom Brown, there's a fine line between a cop and a criminal. hopefully the OG is going to solve Tom's case. Diane, I agree with you. And as I continue to state, cops have been suspects in at least 10% of the cases that Unfound is covered. And I know that we're going to be covering one within probably in the next couple months where it's an ex-cop who is the main suspect. So you can add that to the list. Jillian says, I think it has something to do with those ladies being from poverty-ridden communities, oftentimes the lack of coverage and such. Jillian, you're probably right. You're probably right. But I think the difference probably would be that, having and myself and Emily, the way we go about trying to find people, it is true that people who are middle, lower class people, it does seem that they are harder to find. It does. It's a perception of mine. I'm not saying they're avoiding anybody. I'm not saying that. But I can understand how they might be a little easier to find. But if Emily and I can do it, then the Canadian media can do it. All right? They surely have more resources at their beck and call than we do. I mean, but we are motivated. Emily, as I've talked about many times, Emily is a motivated person. I'm a motivated person. Some of the other people that have helped me find guests, Shuri has helped me. Anthony, who I know was checked in earlier, obviously has been on the program a couple times for, these people know how to find people, and we're just private citizens. So it shouldn't matter, the economic condition or the ethnicity or anything. And as you know in this program, I'll talk to anybody. I don't care anything about any race or where they are. I don't care. But it does seem a little bit that, I'll just give you an example. There are two African-American girls missing from the Pittsburgh area who have disappeared like within the last 20 years. I've only been able to track down one family member on one of the cases so far, and I've been working on that for weeks. So it is tough, but it's not impossible. And I just think that it's a huge oversight on the media in Canada and law enforcement in Canada, specifically the mounted police. Cheryl says human trafficking, perhaps. She was in her 30s, Cheryl, so I'm going to guess not. But it could be a possibility, maybe some of the other cases. Panelist says, glad you're covering this. The subject has weighed on me an awful long time. Thank you. And Carrie says, I'm not sure what you're referring to there, Carrie, so I'm not going to read it. So that's what this week's case. Bonnie Joseph. She was a mother of 5 children who are all, I've been told, are in their 20s now. And, they're, of course, also wondering what happened to their mother. So I think we've come to the end of this program, man. We went a long time tonight, an hour and 13 minutes at least. So told you I've been busy on the phone. Maybe going to visit the location of a disappearance north of me, a couple hours north of me this weekend. Nice to be back in Florida. Been spending a lot of time on the phone. The conversation I had with the FBI at the end of last week. Talked to you about the shirts, the cards, the books, and PayPal. Patreon. We talked about the doorbell woman, I should say, in Montgomery County, Texas, and how that's kind of been resolved. We talked about the headless and handless body of Brian Egg in San Francisco. We talked about Christopher Watts and how they tracked down this alleged gay lover, if that even matters. And then we talked about this coming Friday's case, the disappearance of Bonnie Joseph, an episode I'm calling The Highway of Tears. And that happened on September 8th, 2007 in Vanderhoof, British Columbia, Canada. So that's it. I appreciate Chandra getting right in here at the end. I appreciate it, but I'm signing off now. I appreciate everybody watching tonight. My favorite time of the week where I can talk to you, answer your questions. You get to talk amongst yourselves, which I think is great as well. And for anybody that tuned in late, you know that you will be able to find this on YouTube later. So I'm signing off for tonight. Thank you so much. And you will hear me on Friday. And I hope everybody has a great rest of the week. See ya.